some of the higher ranking sounds that I would like to be able to play with a MIDI guitar setup is of course those of the Synthaxe from the 80s. But perhaps I need to be clear here. The Synthaxe in itself doesn't have any sounds, of course. The Synthaxe is only a MIDI controller, and the sounds we're talking about are the sounds that were created by the people who used it at that time. And the most influential in my book is, of course, Allan Holdsworth. So I would be talking about any recreations of the Oberheim synths here, or perhaps some Kurzweil or the DX7 or something like this. And then I would be talking about GeForce or Arturia or any, perhaps the UVI vintage Vault sound collections. But I'm not. What I'm really looking for in this video is a very particular swell sound that Allan Holdsworth used, and perhaps also specifically looking for some of those solo synth sounds that Allan used between Tavakron and Wardenclyffe Tower, perhaps. For most of us, the Synthaxe is unattainable. We're not going to play those because of their scarcity and because of obviously the prices, the price ranges. So my goal would be to find these sounds and try to play them with a traditional setup, with what we have today, like my guitars and obviously software instead. To try to recreate the sounds of the Synthaxe in full with a standard guitar is kind of silly because of the structure that the Synthaxe has. It has this fret scanning, and the note on and note off are way more connected in the Synthaxe than it is in a pitch to MIDI system like MIDI Guitar 3. Since YouTube nowadays are all about not sharing and perhaps stealing from each other, I want to go in the opposite direction. I really want to point out those guys who are actually offering something for free, that are giving us advice on how to set up to achieve certain things. So let's start with John Vullo, one of the lucky guys who actually owns a Synthaxe. In this video, he has suggested a brilliant way of setting up if we want to achieve these swell effects. So what he used, and he used this with his actual Synthaxe, so he of course got even closer to the Allan Holdsworth sounds, but used Synclavier from Arturia, and he used the voices, and I think that's brilliant. The only thing that you need to look at is the attack, the decay, and the release perhaps, because you can have pretty short release if you want to. If you want to use this with something like an expression pedal, for instance. I have an expression pedal down here, so I can sort of freeze this stuff. I'm going to play over it with another instrument as well. But the thing that he did was to actually keep a pretty long release. And he got these beautiful shimmering sounds, you know, these church-like sounds that we hear in much of the Allan Holdsworth material. So this is, I think it's a brilliant use of the Arturia Synclavier, actually. So thanks to John Vullo for that. What I did here to further get a bit closer perhaps to the Holdsworth sound is I'm using the relayer here to sort of close in on the Allan Holdsworth baby, they call it here, the UD Stomp delay pedal. It's obviously somewhat anachronistic to emulate the UD Stomp here because that came out way later, but according to himself, he's always used a lot of different reverbs and delays together to create this effect that I'm going to talk about, this little slapback effect in a big room sense that he got out of the UD Stomp. You have these 8 independent delays that you can set, and he set them in a very specific manner where he uses the first 4 as really short, which gives the actual sound some sort of room sound echo because of these slapbacks. They are also panned really specific, so they are panned hard left and hard right in a very specific manner, and all this stuff you can find in the actual UD Stomp delay pedal manual. I didn't get it from the UD Stomp manual. Instead, I got the information from Bill from Chords of Orion, who's been around for a while and is also one of those guys who is really generous with information with regards to setting up for different soundscapes and stuff like this. And he did this setup with the Valhalla delay. These are both demos for me, so I don't have the patchwork and I don't have the Valhalla effect, but I did have the relayer, the UVI relayer effect. And although it's not exactly the same thing, I can set up with time to begin with. The first 4 you see are really, really short, and the last 4 are really long. So this creates 2 kinds of reverb effects almost. So it sounds like a little room in a bigger room when we use this effect. Then we have the gain, and it's pretty specified how we want to use this. It's 100% for the first 4, and I think it's 65% for the last 4. The panning effect is like this, and I also used a modulation effect here, and that's not exactly the same as the UD Stomp, but this is something at least in the vicinity. So that's me setting up the relayer just to have something that reminds me of this UD Stomp effect. Another thing that I did that I really think is Holdsworthian, if you want, is I used the string tuning effect that is part of MIDI Guitar 3 right now. And as you can see here, I lowered the 6th string. So that's lowered 1 octave. The 5th string as well, and I raised the 4th string and the 6th string, so I can get this really high and shimmerous effect, and the lows as well. I think this is really, really honing in on the Holdsworth sound. And now to end off, I'm using Dune here to get something like a Holdsworth solo sound as well. I think it's pretty interesting stuff. Synapse have Obsession and Dune 3, and both of these are great to do these sounds in, I guess. There is also a case to be made for something like UVI's HX-ODDY, I think. But this is really what I wanted to show you. This Synclavier stuff, thanks John Vullo. This relayer stuff, if you have relayer, or you can go with the Blue Cat and the Valhalla delay if you want to do that. Thanks so much to Bill and Chords of Orion. And then don't forget stuff like this string tuning to get these even more stunning effects. This is going to be part of MIDI Guitar 3 going forward, and I can assure you that some of the stuff that you're going to be able to do with string tuning is going to blow your mind in a not so distant future. But until then, thanks and bye.